It all started on a quiet Tuesday morning, or at least it was supposed to be quiet. I had just made my coffee, stepped out onto my porch, and the sun was barely up. My dog, Milo, was sitting peacefully next to me, half asleep. But peace and Karen don't mix. Never have, never will. From across the street, I heard the familiar sound, the slam of her screen door. Then came that voice, the kind that could cut through steel. "Excuse me," she shouted. "Your dog has been barking for the past hour." I looked at Milo. The dude hadn't even opened his eyes. I blinked, completely lost. Karen, he's literally sleeping." She crossed her arms like she was the president of the neighborhood. "Don't argue with me. I have ears, and I know what I heard." Now, the funny thing is, Karen's the kind of person who complains about everything, from how you park your car to the sound of your wind chimes. Last week, she even left a note saying, "Your mailbox paint is too shiny." Yeah, that kind of neighbor. At first, I ignored it. Maybe she was just in one of her moods. But the next day, the exact same time, she came storming out again. "I'm calling the HOA!" she yelled. "You and your mutt are disturbing the peace." That's when I realized this wasn't just a complaint. This was war. I decided to check the security camera footage to make sure Milo wasn't barking when I wasn't around. Guess what? Not a single sound. But that's when I noticed something else. Every time Karen's sprinklers turned on, there was a weird squeaky noise, loud enough to sound like barking. That's when an idea started forming in my head. A ridiculous, funny, totally unhinged idea. If she wanted to hear barking, she was going to hear barking. I ordered 3 tiny Bluetooth speakers online, small enough to hide anywhere. Then I downloaded over 100 realistic dog barking sounds. Small dogs, big dogs, angry dogs, even chihuahuas. And I smiled to myself as I said, "All right, Karen, you asked for it." The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I was excited. Okay, maybe a little. But because it was mission day. Operation Bark Begins. I had spent the previous night testing the barking sounds. Some were realistic, others were so scary even I jumped. My favorite one. A deep, echoing bark that sounded like it came from a dog the size of a bear. I hid the first Bluetooth speaker under the bushes near the fence. The second went behind a potted plant near the front gate. The third, my masterpiece, was hidden under Karen's own mailbox. Yeah, poetic justice. I set the timers. 1 bark every 30 seconds, another every minute, and a random one just to keep her guessing. Then I sat back on my porch, coffee in hand, and waited for chaos to bloom. At exactly 8:15 a.m., the first bark echoed. "Woof!" I froze, pretending to be innocent. Milo, my real dog, lifted his head in confusion. Then a second bark, louder, deeper. "Woof! Woof!" And then, like the devil herself had been summoned, slam went her door. "That's it!" she screamed from across the street. "I'm calling animal control!" I had to bite my lip to stop myself from laughing. She stood in her robe, messy hair flying, scanning the street like a detective. She couldn't tell where the barking was coming from. She marched down the sidewalk, spinning around like she was tracking invisible dogs. Every time she turned one way, a bark came from the other direction. It was like surround sound comedy. 10 minutes later, a city truck rolled in. Animal control had arrived. 2 officers got out, looking confused. Karen ran up to them, pointing at my yard like a soldier on a mission. "It's him! His dog won't stop barking." The officer looked over at me. Milo was sitting quietly, chewing his toy. The man raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, the dog's not even barking." Karen's jaw dropped. But I heard it." One of the officers walked around, checking corners. Another bark sound went off, this time from behind Karen's house. She spun around so fast, her phone nearly flew out of her hand. I nearly spilled my coffee laughing. The officer looked at me, then at her. "Ma'am," he said politely, "are you sure you're feeling all right today?" Karen turned red. "I'm telling you, the dog, it's everywhere." That's when I knew it. This prank was going down in neighborhood history. The next morning, I thought maybe Karen had learned her lesson. Maybe she'd realized it wasn't Milo. Maybe she'd even apologized. But no, this was Karen. At 8 a.m. sharp, I heard it. Not a bark this time, but the sound of something metal. I peeked out my window and saw her hammering a big wooden sign into the ground. In bright red letters it said, "No barking zone. Violators will be reported." I almost spit out my cereal. She actually made her own law. That's when I decided the game wasn't over. It was just getting interesting. I adjusted the barking pattern. Less frequent in the morning, heavier in the afternoon. I even added a few whining puppy sounds just to mess with her. If she thought one dog was bad, she was about to meet a whole kennel. By noon, the neighborhood group chat was on fire. People were messaging. "Anyone else hearing dogs all day? Is someone running a rescue shelter here? Why does it sound like the soundtrack of 101 Dalmatians?" Karen replied instantly, "It's him, the guy with the brown dog." I was laughing so hard I could barely type. I replied, "My dog's been inside all day, Karen. Maybe check your sprinklers again." Half an hour later, her husband came outside, rubbing his head like he hadn't slept in a week. "Honey," he said, "I don't hear anything anymore. Right on cue. Bark. Loud. Echoing. Bouncing off the houses." Karen screamed, "There it is again!" Her husband sighed, "Honey, I think it's in your head." She stomped off inside. I was dying of laughter, but I had to keep it cool. Didn't want her suspecting anything. Not yet. That evening, as the sun set, I took a quiet stroll past her yard. She was standing there with binoculars, scanning rooftops. She actually whispered to herself, "They're hiding the dogs." Somewhere, I couldn't resist. I played a bark from my phone right behind her fence. She froze like a statue. Slowly turned around. "Who's there?" I tiptoed away, whispering to myself, "Not a dog, just karma." By the next morning, everyone in the neighborhood was talking about the phantom dog. Some even started recording videos to catch it. It had officially become a community mystery. And through it all, Karen looked more and more tired, pacing up and down her lawn with a flashlight, yelling, "I know it's real!" But she didn't know. The best part of the prank was yet to come. By day 4, the whole neighborhood was talking about it. Kids had started naming the mystery dogs. Someone even made a meme in the local Facebook group that said, "The ghost dog of Maple Street barking since Tuesday," and in the middle of it all stood Karen. Wild hair, dark circles, clutching a clipboard like it was a holy artifact. That morning, I decided it was time for the grand finale. I gathered my 3 little Bluetooth speakers and synced them perfectly with my phone. Then I added a 4th sound, a chorus of dogs barking together. This was going to be the barkpocalypse. At exactly 8 p.m., when the street was quiet, I pressed play. First, 1 bark, then 2, then 10. Soon, it sounded like an entire dog park had moved into the neighborhood. Lights flicked on across the street. Curtains moved. People peeked out their windows. And then, right on cue, Karen burst out of her house like a soldier charging into battle. "Where are they? Where are the dogs?" she screamed, waving a flashlight around. Her husband followed behind her in pajamas, shaking his head. "Karen, it's just sounds. I told you, you need to relax." "Relax!" she snapped. "They're taunting me. They bark when I breathe." Right at that moment, I played one of the puppy whining sounds. She froze. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Now there's puppies too." Her husband groaned. "Honey, maybe we should talk to someone about this." Karen gasped. "You think I'm crazy?" And that's when I lost it. I laughed, loud enough for her to hear. She turned her flashlight toward my house. "You! I knew it! You and your stupid dog!" I raised my coffee cup in salute. "Evening, Karen." Just then, the final speaker went off, right under her mailbox. "Woof! Woof! Woof!" She jumped so high, she dropped her flashlight. "They're everywhere!" she shrieked, running back inside. The next morning, everything was silent. Not a bark, not a peep. When I stepped outside, there was a note taped to my mailbox. It said in shaky handwriting, "I surrender. You win. Just, please, no more barking." I smiled, folded the note, and whispered, "Don't mess with quiet neighbors," and we barked back. That day, peace returned to Maple Street. Milo slept in the sun. I finally enjoyed a cup of coffee in silence. And Karen? Well, rumor has it she joined a meditation class. And from that day on, every time I saw her, she smiled nervously, probably praying she'd never hear another bark again.